And we are back with another Black with No Cream podcast. New episode every single Sunday. I'm your host, Ben Haggerty, a.k.a. Ben Reverse World. I'm currently in Iowa for the holidays, and it just snowed outside. And my dad's sitting in here watching me do this, and he's filming me with his phone, which is kind of weird. Anyway, on today's episode, actually wait, before I introduce today's guest, if you want a discount on Black with No Cream merch, pay attention to this entire intro. I'm giving away a big discount to my podcast supporters. So, let's get to this. On today's episode, I'm happy to bring my homie Travis Lloyd on to share his story. Travis is a mental health professional, public speaker, foster care expert, hip-hop artist, author, and mentor. He does all that shit. Travis grew up in and out of foster care, group homes, and was even institutionalized at one point. Growing up in and out of the system, he was often told that he would be dead or in jail before he was 18 and able to graduate high school. He had very little support to push and drive him to succeed in life, but creatively, Travis created his own lane of success. Not only did Travis graduate from high school, he went on to graduate college with a bachelor's in science. Through a series of events, Travis has made his personal goal to empower young people, the adults in their lives, and the professionals who work with them to reach their full potential. He now travels all over the world, speaking and even sharing his poetry and raps that he wrote as a coping mechanism when he was going through the struggle. There is a lot to learn in this conversation. Travis and I go back several years, and before I moved out to LA, I would fly all over the country with him and shoot and create content at all of his events. I'm proud of this dude and believe he has a lot to offer. I hope you enjoy our conversation. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast, you're probably wondering, what does Black with No Cream stand for? Black with No Cream is a private content creator group fueled by caffeine, or at least I take my coffee black with no cream, but you can drink or not drink whatever caffeine you fuck with and still be a part of our community. We are a private group on Facebook open to creators of all kinds, aka if you make videos, you're a photographer, if you do marketing, management, editing, dancing, etc., 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 all creators are welcome. Our private group has been growing rapidly. We have a shit ton of members working together by sharing content, asking for feedback, passing tips and tricks along to one another with the goal of pushing each other to become the best motherfucking content creators on earth. And you can join the group if you want by going to blackwithnocream.com/join. We would love to fucking have you. Please join. A special note I want to make, I'm working with my intern to get the video portion of this podcast up and running. I have been filming every episode and I'm excited to upload them all. We're working around the clock to edit every episode and get them up on the Black with No Cream YouTube channel. I hope to have them up by the new year, so look forward to that. If you're interested in supporting Black with No Cream, please go to blackwithnocream.com/merch. We have hats, shirts, stickers, pins, and shit that are all available in the store. I appreciate anyone who picks up some merch. Since it's the holidays, I have created a special discount for anyone who fucks with the Black with No Cream podcast. I'm offering 20% off all orders, so if you use the code THEPODCASTISDOPE, all one word, the podcast is dope, this is the deal. It will end next Sunday. Hop on it now, 20% off. That's tight. That's my first time doing a discount. If you don't have the funds, I totally get it. There's another way you can support. Obviously, share a link to this podcast with as many people as you possibly can. And please hop on iTunes and leave us a review. Every review helps this podcast grow, and it helps me understand as a host what to do differently and how to give you guys better content. So I appreciate you for doing that. All right, that's it. Enjoy the work week. Keep creating. Make sure to tune in every single Sunday for a new Black with No Cream episode. And without further ado, I bring to you my interview with Travis Lloyd and the most epic podcast intro ever created right motherfucking now!
Attention.
If you stop this podcast recording at any time,
you will die.
I don't want to die.
Do you want to live?
You have 24 hours to share this podcast with 5 people or you will die.
I'm kidding, you won't die. You're just weak shit for not sharing.
And the winner of the best motherfucking podcast goes to...
Black with No Cream.
What do you think?
It's so fucking dumb and so fucking Ben Haggerty.
I knew you would say that. And we are back with another Black with No Cream podcast with my motherfucking homie, Travis Lloyd.
What's up, what's up, what's up?
How you doing, dog?
I'm great. I'm just sipping a little Black with No Cream.
That's right. Yeah, we're having some coffee over here at the WeWork office where me and Andrew just got a spot. So we're testing it out. I don't know how it'll sound or look, but this is like a boardroom at a WeWork office. Normally I do it in my kitchen. But
you mean this is Black with No Cream headquarters?
Yeah, that's right. We got the little monitor in the background.
Yeah.
Hopefully it stays awake. I don't know. This is some makeshift shit. No, but Travis Lloyd, man, this is my homie from Iowa, okay? So Travis and I met each other years back, and we'll get into that. Travis has worked with, he's a foster care kid himself, grew up in that world.
Well, once upon a time.
Grew up in that world, and is now a foster care expert. He's also a speaker, an author, a rapper. He used music back in the day to like get himself through some shit.
It was how I coped, man.
That was how you coped.
Yeah.
He's a legend. He does everything. So I've known Travis for some time. We've traveled actually before I moved out to LA. We would travel over the nation. I would like film for him, and we'd just like wing it off no money, just trying to figure out how to make each other look.
Oh my
really
gosh,
cool.
South Dakota, bro.
Yeah, South Dakota. we had some trips. So I learned a lot with Travis, and I taught Travis a lot of shit. And now it's tight because since I've left, Travis has implemented a lot of like the video techniques and things that I was doing back then himself, because at the time I told him like the best thing you could do is learn as much as possible, so you could do as much as possible on your own versus needing to hire someone or rely on someone else.
But the reason that I needed to is a funny story.
Yeah.
Because you were on site with me. We were doing a speaking gig in Colorado for a big conference, and you had the drone out, and you were like doing these cool things, and me walking into the conference, making me look super cool.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the event, you get a call. And you're like, sorry, dude, I'm ducking out. I'm going to LA to shoot a Chris Brown music video. And I'm like, what
the fuck, dude? I'm speaking in Denver, Colorado, man. We need to film this.
I need some promotional footage.
I know, man. It was fun though, because we started like kind of figuring it out and like running that market and trying to figure out how to like make the most effective content from what you were doing. So Travis would get hired to go speak to any given situation. Like, let's say, what's like a main speech that you would do?
My primary audiences are child welfare, mental health, juvenile justice, social services, and I also do some stuff in education. So a really big example would be like mental health awareness, suicide prevention on a campus.
Right, and that could be in front of hundreds, if not thousands, of different people from all over the state, sometimes just like in that specific city.
Yeah.
And so it ranged. We could be talking to, maybe we go to a foster care house and talk to like 20 kids or 15 kids, and then turn around and go talk to 2,000 people in a huge room where Travis would be on a stage for 90 minutes doing a keynote speech. Like being the guy that would seal the deal in that entire, whatever that weekend was for those people. Travis got up and was like, yo, I grew up in this shit. This is what I learned, and I hope that you guys can take care of whatever information.
For a lot of those like professional audiences, my goal is to influence the people who are now serving people who need those services. So the judges, the lawyers, the social workers, the therapists, psychologists, teachers. And when they're at professional development events, they're there to learn, they're there to grow, they're there to stay up on, up to par with current practices. And my goal is to just re-inspire them and let them know that what they do matters, and like help them see through me that it's possible, no matter where you come from or where you want to go, to achieve and to move on despite that background.
Right. And Travis talks about it a lot, and I every time we go somewhere, he would speak, and it's similar. It's it's a routine. You're trying to kind of package your story into like 90 minutes, and I would hear it. But every time there's always some new curveball that he would throw out there that I learned something about Travis, which always blew my fucking mind. I'm like, God damn, he went through that. He did that shit. Like it's crazy. So what better way to do this than to have someone who's been through it, survived it? Because oftentimes, and I know you talk about it in your book and everything like that, that you were told that you would be dead or in jail before you were 18.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That this motherfucker was not supposed to make it. People said he wasn't going to live or survive this. He was a tragedy to the world.
Right. Well, everybody judged me based on where I came from, and unfortunately, my family now is doing much better. But at the time, my sister was a long-term meth addict,
right,
and my mom had gone through some really, really tough situations that kind of put her over the edge, and I wasn't connected to my father, anymore.
Yeah.
And we lived separate parts of the country, and
right,
and everyone knew my connection to my sister, who was a meth addict and drug dealer.
Right.
So everyone just assumed that I'm going to be a drug dealer, or I'm going to be dead or in prison.
Instantly judging you for, something you didn't even do. You had nothing to do with. It's just tied in through family, and then instantly coined as like, this kid's going to fuck up. So Travis has to deal with, no one really pushed him to say, you're going to be great. You're going to be awesome. You can be the next fucking Michael Jordan or whatever. To just being like, you're going to fucking probably die in the streets or, OD or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so you always had that going along with Travis's story.
What pisses me off about that, though, is like a lot of I had enough, people, one person at a time, to influence me, to like teach me that that's not really who I am.
Yeah.
But there were many times that when I ran into difficult situations and I started to question myself, that I almost wanted to just throw in the towel and say, screw it. Like, this is what everyone expects of me. This is what I'm going to be. And there were many times when I did that, where it landed me in a shitload of trouble.
Yeah. And I don't know. Now fast forward to today, Travis is one of the most well-rounded dudes that I've ever met, who's got his head on his shoulders, has always operated kind of on his own, solo dolo for life or whatever, and has learned from other people. So he's gravitated and has been kind of a magnet to, you know, positivity and finding things that could link everything together. And then for himself to turn that in, he's had an incredible career basically for the past 10 years, you know.
15
years.
Wait a second. I'm going to be 34 this year, bro.
Yeah.
So that would mean
motherfuckers
17
been in the game. So listen,
since I started working in that capacity.
Yeah, so Travis started speaking forever ago, right? Started speaking forever ago about, you know, all the shit that he's been going through. And there's so much more, and I know you guys, like, I'm summarizing things, and we can get through certain things and talk about it to summarize who Travis Lloyd is, but buy the motherfucking book, okay?
Right.
Please, link in description or whatever, it's in the show notes. But like, you know, so getting to where you were back then, you were speaking on this shit, and that's through a mutual friend, Dante. You and Dante would do some stuff together too, and like you guys would link up, and you would go out and speak, and he would speak, and you guys would speak together, and then you would also perform, because what people don't get is that Travis would use music as a way of coping. So like back in the day, he's like the only white kid in an all-black neighborhood trying to figure it out. And
what's funny though is I was so used to struggling that I intentionally placed myself in those situations. Like I just the
situation of like a lower income space, like where you were just kind of like
where I felt comfortable there because that's what I grew up in. So like when I met Dante and Chuck and all these cats like who were doing music and doing it big, for especially for where we were from, I was in college at that time and I was so used to poverty and the hood and all of that that's where I just gravitated.
Right. And then he would end up at like the nightclubs, and there'd be like the local DJ, and Travis would come in and he would be like, "Can I play you some music?"
Oh my God, DJ Days.
So what's cool to like loop this back in, Travis and I met, so Dante put together a program with Travis and a couple other guys called
Heart of a Student.
The Heart of a Student. Sorry, I totally blanked. Heart of a Student. And brought me on because he wanted kind of a video element, and I was doing music too, so he wanted to loop me in somehow. And it was last minute. He's like, "Hey, man, we're doing like this 5-6 city run. We're going to go to all these high schools and speak to them."
12 cities, bro.
12 cities, sorry.
2 weeks.
Cities.
12 cities.
Yeah, okay. So we go to all these cities and we start, you know, speaking with these kids. And basically it was like an auditorium, and all these kids would pile in. And each time you guys all kind of had a show put together. And I was just shooting it and trying to help make it better. And so, you know, Travis would come out and he would start doing some poetry. And he would just, out of nowhere, you'd see this dude come out with some emotional-ass poetry. And the kids would just be quiet, like dead silent, hearing him talk about some real shit, you know? Yeah. And then Dante would come out singing. And then we had the Brazilian twins, two of our homies that...
They come out dancing and
doing flips and playing violin and cello and shit and like doing crazy stunts. And so collectively, it was a really unique experience because these kids, you know, it was middle class, like lower income schools, and the kids had nothing. And the whole goal for us was to try to help them understand that there's more after high school. You know what I mean? There's more than just this little dramatic packed world that you live in. So come on, just like listen to what we're saying and follow what we're trying to do, and you can do this too. You know what I mean? So I thought that was so unique. And like one of the first nights, me and Travis got bunked up in a hotel together.
And I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like, what are you doing? And you're just staring at your phone.
And I didn't know either of you. I didn't know you. And we were also in the room with DJ
Days. I had no
Days.
clue who you were.
We had DJ Days, who was like a local DJ that they brought on the tour. So he would like spin in between the shit. So at the night, this is a 3-person hotel room, which I always laugh about. It had 3 fucking beds in it, which I've never seen in my life. I don't know where we were. It's somewhere in Iowa. And we all had our own bed, and we're just like chilling for the evening. We had to get it back up in the morning and do it again. And you're like, "Dude, what are you doing on your phone?" I'm like, "Instagramming," or something like that. I'm like, just getting some content for Instagram. You're like, "Dog, I need to learn how to use Instagram." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know how to use Instagram?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "But your whole thing is like doing social shit with people, like being socially like found." Yes.
I'm like, I got what, like 900 followers on my Facebook page. So
I was like,
isn't that cool?
I got some tips for you, bro. And we started like just going ham, and I was teaching him about how social media worked. But then we became friends, like through that little experience. And you know, since then we went on and we did 12 cities, and it was amazing. And we touched mad kids. Like these kids were just like coming to us.
I mean, some of those kids still hit me up on social media and like tell me about their struggles and their triumphs. And,
I think I just had a kid not too long ago that came back and was talking about his like victory. Like, man, when I found you, like you were doing video stuff and I wanted to do it. And now I rap and all this shit. And I'm like, this is crazy. I forgot about that trip. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they come back to you and just, it was a really cool and empowering thing for these kids. I'm glad we did it. I wish we could continue doing it. I think that it matters, and I think that it has so much value, even for us. Like, none of us were like famous. None of us were superstars. We were local just like them, but they
thought that we were.
They thought we were superstars. Like, it was crazy. We'd come out and it would just be like kids dancing. They wanted to scream. They wanted to cheer. They wanted to listen. It was like they wanted pictures afterwards.
Oh man, the hugs and the pictures,
wild,
and the videos. Like we would be stuck. They'd be supposed to be in class, and they're like getting referrals to stay with us.
Yeah, and I remember that. Remember that time there was one time where the principal of one school was like, "Yo, I got this kid who's been going through some shit." And he really
Cedar Falls.
No, it wasn't Cedar Falls. No, that did happen too. There was another kid in Cedar Falls, but this was like at one of the schools we had just performed there, and then like right afterwards, he's like, "Could you guys come talk to him?" And he was in a class, and there was probably like 8 other kids, and I think maybe it was like a detention or something. And we all just kind of came in, and the kid just hated life, and he was like, "Who the fuck are these guys?" You know what I mean? And by the time we left, he was like hugging everyone, like, "Bro, thank you." Like, I don't even know what he wanted or what the deal was, but he just needed change. Like, he needed to see kids that were, you know, a little older than him, but have like found something to gravitate towards, and that shit was so fucking cool. I was just supposed to do video shit and get like a couple $100, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden I was like, that's
dope. What this is about, bro.
Team Change Lives.
Yeah.
TeamChangeLives.com.
Nope. That's a hashtag, bro.
Oh, it's just a hashtag. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna buy the domain and sell it back to you for fucking $3,000. But yeah, these are just stories, man. This is stories like how we met. But Travis's story is so unique because, you know, you started out in Seattle. Like, I could summarize your whole fucking package for you because I've heard it so many times. Yeah, this motherfucker started in Seattle, okay? His parents split, go through some shit. His mom and, you know, his dad, whatever, they split, and he kind of like, it kind of gets really bad, right? So you can, I don't want to say your story anymore. I want you to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm going to botch it.
Maybe I can summarize it.
Yeah, summarize it for me because you have to understand how fucked up this shit is for people that have to go through foster care, right? Just to have to go through that in general, but to also deal with terrible things, especially right now. Let's play with relevance. There's that video, I don't know if you saw it, of that kid that just like was bullied in school and everyone's reposting this shit. Did you see that? The past day or two? This kid, I don't know where he's from, and I think I just saw his name finally.
Maybe you can add a clip in there.
Yeah, I'll post it in the show notes. But this kid posted a video, and he's crying. His mom's filming him, and he just had milk poured down his shirt and gets made fun of for his nose and all these things. And he's just so fucking sad, and it's terrible. But it's dope because everyone, at least from who I follow, it's like hip-hop culture, are reposting. Like Chris Brown just shared it. All these people are sharing it like, yo, fuck everyone else. This kid needs friends. Like, you are now the coolest kid in your school because of us. Like, we found you, and you don't need to think like that anymore because none of these kids matter. Like, this is all, you know what I mean? So I'm just ranting, but like, I hate that shit. I hate that shit. And I was lucky as fuck because I didn't have to grow up like that. You know what I mean?
And I'll share some of my story for sure. But one thing that I really want to, you know, hone in on is that as I share my story, it's not because I'm sharing, and it's not because I'm important. Right? It's not about the story. It's about understanding that when you share a part of who you are and what you've experienced, that just opens the door for other people to feel like it's okay for what they went through and that it's possible to get through it and do better and be better.
100%. That's why I fucking have you on the show.
Yeah,
dude.
right?
That's why I have everyone on the show. Like, I just think everyone has a story, and that story could affect anyone who's listening to this. Whether, I mean, these aren't getting mad views, like millions of views. I wish. Like, someday.
Oh,
I think,
will.
Yeah, even if it touches 2 people, 1 person. You know what I mean? That's all that matters.
Just one person?
Just one person. We talk about this all the time, and that's part of Travis's shit. Funny as hell. But anyway, get into it. Like, kind of just summarize. Can you summarize like your childhood, basically? Like, what set you up to move to Iowa?
So, I mean, that's real simple. My dad was originally from Long Beach, California. My mom was originally from Forest City, Iowa, small town in northern Iowa. Both of them had just real messed up backgrounds. They ended up in St. Louis. My dad moved to St. Louis for a job. My mom moved there to get away. They were living in the same apartment building, and all of a sudden, voila, a love child was born when they moved to Seattle, right?
Little Travis.
And but the thing is that as the cycles repeat, they both came from real bad backgrounds where they weren't taught coping skills, they weren't taught life skills, and so they're here, you know, in their 20s trying to raise a family. And when shit got tough, you know, they weren't able to pull through, and they just decided it's not working anymore. So that divorce happened, and there was a restraining order. So I didn't have contact with my dad. And my mom ended up going to get help, and she stayed in the hospital. And my sister at the time was in rehab. And so that's when I went to foster care. And I didn't know that I had other family in Iowa, because my mom wanted to get away from everything she'd experienced when she was younger.
Right.
So she just made it we as children did not know that we had aunts and uncles or anything like that. And while I was in the second foster home, these random people showed up at the door, and they're like, "We're your family," and they took me from that foster home, put me on a plane, and brought me to Iowa, so that they could just make sure nothing bad was continue to happen in Seattle.
But I love this too, and I know you say this when you speak, but talk about how your it was your uncle. How did he smuggle you onto the plane? This is like pre 9/11. I love this part of the story.
You want that? Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it was way before 9/11. This was December of 1993 when I was in that second foster home, and they decided, my aunt and uncle and my grandfather on my mom's side and his third or fourth wife, they showed up at the door. And my uncle had to get a U-Haul to, unload everything in our house.
Right.
And so he took the U-Haul and drove it from Seattle back to Iowa, which is 1,500 miles, a 3 or 4 day trip.
Yeah, for sure.
And so since he was driving, my aunt just gave me his ticket. And that's when, a lot of times in my presentation, I'll say that's when I became the most attractive 63-year-old Ronald Kellogg ever to get on a plane.
So corny.
They weren't patting me down. They weren't probing me. They didn't check my ID. I just became Ronald Kellogg, age 63.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Just fucking got the ticket and just hopped on the plane. Skirt.
Yeah.
So you moved to Iowa, and at the time, your mom's going through this shit. She's having a rough time, and you kind of experienced that for a while at home.
Yeah.
And your aunt, before she takes you in, I mean, you're talking about you had different dudes coming into the house, and you're a kid, and you just, you're really struggling with, it's just a shitty environment for a kid, How old were you at the time?
I mean, that was 9 until 13 and a half, almost 14.
Yeah.
So about 4.5 years.
And you're just kind of hearing that and get pulled out. And then once you get, your aunt comes and grabs you, you're brought back to Iowa, where you live on a farm.
Yeah.
And basically in the middle of fucking Iowa.
And during that 9 to 14 time frame, I mean, that's being placed in emergency shelters, being home alone all the time, being on food stamps. I would get back then it was paper food stamps, right? Now it's a card.
Right.
But back then the real paper food stamps, the $1 food stamps, I would take them to the grocery store, and I would buy the 5-cent gummy bears, right?
Yeah.
The large ones. And I would take one gummy bear to the checkout counter, and I would pay with a $1 food stamp so that I could get 95-cent change. And I would do that over and over again until I could buy what I wanted to buy.
Smart man. Ridiculous. Damn. But you end up getting, you're at your aunt's, and to summarize the story for the rest of that, because this is all in his book, and it's written so well, and you tell this shit so well, which is actually crazy about his book, because when he was writing his book, he was having this massive brain fart and couldn't finish it, and he was like, dude, I just need to come get out of. He lived in Des Moines at the time. I lived in Cedar Falls, which is a 2-hour drive. Yeah. So he's like, I just gotta get out. So he came where I lived at my parents' house, had a studio built in the basement, and I was like, well, we're working at another studio, so you can just take over my spot. So he literally just transformed my room into Travis's room and wrote a book. Wrote 2/3 of his motherfucking book.
Yeah, just sitting in your office chair.
Yeah,
because I needed a change of environment.
And he had to deliver it on a certain time, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever, he finishes the book and heads home, and he calls me late that night, dude, I need you to send me the file. I don't have it on my computer. And I'm like,
the one that I had saved.
Yeah. So he's like, I thought I had it. I don't have it. You need to send it to me. And I'm like, fuck. I just cleaned my desktop because I'm a fucking neat freak, and I hate when random shit's on my thing, JPEGs or whatever.
Oh, my heart sank.
And I deleted
I lost 10,000 words.
10,000. I deleted this dude's work, and he was screaming, fuck, shit, no, fuck. And he had to have it done in 3 more days. He had to have it submitted to the publication, whatever. And I was feeling so terrible that he just did all this, and he ended up sitting down and banged it out in another
day or two.
Yeah, but I feel like you rewrote an even better version of.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it was training for
but
him, guys.
so here's the thing. One cool thing. I'll tell them like what the book is because it's really helpful. Like when I tell people the title of it, oftentimes they're just like thrown off. Like, oh, this, that's a little bit too much for me. It's too emotional. It's too close. Like maybe that's good for somebody else or for crazy people, but it's probably not good for me.
Right.
Right. They just make those assumptions because of the title. But I promise you, like I don't give a shit who you are. It's something that can relate to you and you can learn and grow from it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
The title is Overcoming Emotional Trauma, Life Beyond Survival Mode. And you can, like, Ben actually helped me, you helped me write and produce a PSA promoting the book.
Right.
And you can see that video that you made at www.overcomingemotionaltrauma.com.
Yeah.
Now, the one cool thing that I think your listeners might benefit from is understanding the process that it took for me to get there. Because there's so many people who like want to do an album, want to do a book, and it just seems like too big of a task.
Right.
And for me, it was too. But I knew that in order for me to be seen as viable in the market of professional speaking, or even in performing, because I like during these times I get paid to go do like positive hip hop song concerts, right? For youth programs and stuff. And I needed to have some sort of platform to stand on, and that's what the book was going to do for me. But I knew that it was such a daunting task. Like there's no way I'm going to do it unless I have a deadline.
Right.
So what I started to do is I started to promote my speaking services, and I started to make cold calls, and I started to raise awareness to my availability as a performer and as a speaker. And I was calling schools, I was calling government agencies to do conferences, events,
churches.
like just churches, and I would get on there, and anytime somebody expressed an interest in booking me, I would like quote something that was way more than I ever would normally quote. But then I would say, but
like quote your fee.
My fee.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then I would say, but if you want a significant discount on my fee, all you have to do is order 300 copies or more of my new book. And all I had was the title at the time. Right?
Yeah. Little hustler. Young hustler.
And so then, finally, one of these people called me back, and they're like, hey, we want to book you to come inspire our judges and lawyers for the entire state of South Dakota. And I'm like, gosh, I really have a lot of stuff to do. I don't want to do this. And so normally I was doing gigs at like $2,000 or $3,000 per gig.
Right.
And that would include my expenses, right? By the time I was all done and all the time I put into it, I was making minimum wage.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do this trip for $15,000 if you also order 300 copies of my new book, Overcoming Emotional Trauma. And when I was having a conversation with them, they told me the event date was like September 5th. Or October 5th. And so I in the conversation, I said, with the pending release date of August 5th, 30 days before their event.
So you set yourself up to have to deliver this bitch.
By that day.
How much time in advance is that? Like for you, that gives you how many weeks to write the book?
Well, I booked this gig several months in advance.
Yeah.
But of course, I just kept putting it off. And so then when it got to be like 45, 50 days before, that's when I'm like, okay, I got 3 weeks to finish this book.
Terrifying.
Right? And not only finish it, but publish it and find a designer and
all the shit.
And edit it.
Yeah, and get it on Amazon and all that stuff. So he does it. He pulled it off. I deleted the book. He rewrote the book.
Dick.
I know, but it helped you out, bro. Like, let's just face it. That book was trash until I did that.
Right.
No, so the book is great. And I think the reason why we were talking about the book was because there's a good story in there. It talks about, all the shit you've been through. And if you ever have a chance to find Travis when he's on the road or whatever, you definitely got to hear. There's so much shit he could say to you that'll just open your mindset to stuff. But what always blew my mind was how you talked about, the struggle of like dealing with neglect and the way your family was set up to just, you be with your aunt and your uncle and you live there. And then all of a sudden your mom came to pick you up again. So she finally moved back, right? Like, is that how it went? Like you ended up living in Iowa.
I commend you're trying.
Yeah, so you lived in Iowa for a little bit with your aunt, right?
So my aunt picked me up when I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
A little bit before I turned 14.
Got you.
And then from 14 till 18, I stayed with them on the farm. And that was like my first experience of permanency since I was like 6 or 7. Right. But before that, there was a lot of back and forth to placements, shelters, back and forth to my mom.
But when did your mom come in? Didn't you end up moving back in with your mom after your aunts?
So when we moved to Iowa first, when I was like 9, I was staying with my aunt for like 2 months.
Okay, gotcha.
And then my mom and sister drove to Iowa, like after a couple months, and then that's when we moved into a trailer park.
Okay, with your mom.
With my mom and sister.
Right, and then that was kind of like
that was like from 9 to 14, chaos, violence, drugs, like stupid crap.
Just shitty things for a kid to be dealing with.
Yeah, like getting in fight. I mean, you could see my broken septum.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, weird.
I was like street fight in the middle of nowhere, small town when I was 11.
But you go through all of that, and then with that, you start getting into more music. This is obviously like once you get to college, you graduate high school. Let's talk about that before we skip forward. You finally get to graduate high school, but you always talk about how people literally say, you'll never make it. And I love how you always talk. I'm like trying to figure out what all the best shit I can talk about right now.
Right,
on the fly.
It's been a while since you've been to my events.
It has been. It's been like
it's kind of rusty. Yeah.
So over almost 3 years since we've done it. But what I like is that in a lot of the speeches and stuff, Travis always ties it into it's just one person that can help change shit. Yeah. So example is this. Hopefully one person will gravitate towards this and it could help you.
Yeah.
It could help you connect to Travis after this or whatever it is and like pick your brain on that. But like what I love is that you give the example of when you were in a grade school or something.
Like 8th grade?
Yeah, 8th grade. You were walking down the hall and it was like the end of the school year and you remember their names. There was 2 teachers,
Mrs.
right?
Ross.
Mrs. Ross?
Yeah.
So Mrs. Ross grabs you and basically what'd she say?
She like tapped me on the shoulder, right? And she's like 4'11" maybe. And so here I am in 8th grade and I turn over and I look at her and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm so used to being in trouble that I'm like, Jesus, fuck, am I just going to be suspended? There's like minutes left in the school day. Can you just leave me alone? And it's like the last day of school. And she looks at me and she just gets real like thoughtful. And she says, Travis, I want you to know that this isn't something that we talk about, but Mr. Fedler and I, the science teacher, every year we like to choose one person as most improved. And this year we chose you. And we believe that you've come a long way in your ability to make friends, in your ability to focus, in your ability to be honest, in your ability to do your schoolwork on time. And we think that you're going to do really well in high school. And I use that example because that's one person choosing to just, even though I've been a complete dick, even though I've been this lost little child, recognizing that I'm not a crazy kid, that I'm not this stubborn piece of shit who's never going to amount to anything, and that her pointing out a positive in me might be the only time in that year where I actually thought to myself, oh, I might be smart.
Right.
Crazy. And that like completely changed my trajectory for the next time somebody put me down.
Damn, it would have been crazy if she would have came up and said all that shit to you, and then she's like, we choose one person, and it's your friend Jacob. Do you know where he's at right now? You're like, fuck. No, but
I swear to God,
can you imagine?
She still volunteers in that school.
Amazing. Shout out to her.
She's not a teacher anymore, but I want to go do like a mini doc meeting her.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You should, for sure.
Yeah, you should do it.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, let's go. Where is she at?
In Nevada.
Nevada? You call it Nevada?
Nevada? No, Nevada is the state. Nevada is a city in
Oh,
Iowa.
word. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's where I went to high school.
Crazy.
Yeah. So she still lives there. Like she lives in Ames.
Wow, what a dope
But she still volunteers there. Yeah.
Shout out to her. And I also love that you then talk about a situation where one person could have fucked it all up for you, and it was officer.
The probation officer.
Probation officer.
Yeah.
And Travis gets in trouble for whatever it was and has to go through probation. He's working like cleaning up a church and doing all this shit and spends however many days doing probation.
Like months, bro.
Months. Okay, so he's.
I was 13 and had 100 hours of community service. It's like a part-time job.
What'd you do?
I got like since I didn't have any supervision and I didn't have food a lot of times, I would steal things and sell it in order to buy food, right? I would break into cars, and then there were older kids in my neighborhood who capitalized on the fact that I had no filter and I didn't give a fuck about anything.
Yeah.
And so they would just use me as a lookout for things, to do bigger things. And so we would have planned like robberies. And then I would go to, like, if we found sports equipment, I would go to the used sports store and sell it off. If I got like cartons of cigarettes, I would sell them independently, like individual packages on the school bus.
Crazy.
Like,
so this dude goes and does time for this, and 13 years old.
So but they busted me on a missing Sony Discman.
Fuck. Everyone listening to this podcast is like, what is he talking about? My demographic is so little. Like,
I know, right?
Like, what the fuck is he talking about? Is that a treadmill? So he talks about that story and basically does his time. At the very end of the shit, his aunt comes to pick him up, right? It was your aunt at the time. Came and picked you up, and I love this story. He tells this story well.
So after I got all the hours done, and you know, a lot of people look at it as it's such punishment. It's, you know, nobody wants to do it. But when I did my community service, I looked at it as people are paying attention to me. When I show up to this church and people who come into this church tell me I did a good job scrubbing the steps with a toothbrush and that it looks really nice, like, I started to have pride in the work that I did, and I wanted to do it better.
Of course.
So I started to learn from that, and I started to really value and cherish those moments that I got to get outside of the little world that I knew where everything was hell and just be treated as a human, right? And
so you were lifted up. Like, this is like the first time you're feeling like, you know, anything, any sort of vibe or
like
whatever you can call it.
I have value to bring to the world, right? And when my aunt, you know, brought me to my final meeting with the probation officer looked at all of our things, because you got to get signatures from the directors of every place that you're at, blah, blah, blah. She looked at everything, and then she looked at me, and then she looked at my aunt and said, well, looks like you're all done. We'll sign him off probation. We'll see you back here in a couple of years. They usually come back, right? And in that moment, there's two things that were happening.
Yeah.
One, I was just like, okay, why do I have to come back? You know, like, why are you telling me that I'm just a bad kid and I'm always going to be like this?
Yeah.
And two, my aunt was so shocked. She didn't know how to advocate for me. She didn't know what to say. So she just like was belittled and bullied by this probation officer, and then we left. Right. And she knew that it didn't feel good and she wanted to do something, but she didn't know that she had the power to stand up for me.
Well, and you don't expect someone in that power figure to ever say some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, to throw a statistic at a real person into their face right then and there. It's like, what the fuck? So that all goes back to, it's just one person. You could be one person that lifts someone all the way up, or one person that tears them all the way the fuck down. And that shook you up for, right? Like, that
for a long time.
So then what happens to you after that? Because you start kind of going through some shit again right after that. It's like, what's the point?
I started to get in a little bit more trouble then, and then luckily my aunt and uncle, you know, made things stable for me, and they, as I transitioned into high school, they, you know, made me do things to stay stable, and they got me into sports. I was wrestling and playing baseball, and I just got into a routine for the first time ever, and that routine saved my life, right? But then anytime you've experienced instability in your life or rejection from loved ones, there's always like this what if in the back of your mind. What if they don't love me? What if they don't want me? What if when something bad happens, I don't have anywhere to be?
Right.
And for me, like, by the time I turned 18 and I'm a senior in high school, and everyone in America says when you turn 18, you're an adult now. And so to me, I'm like, I'm an adult now. So when I turn 18, I have to know how to do this. I know how to do that. I have to make money. So I'm thinking in my head, as soon as I turn 18, I'm out. I don't have anywhere to live. And so I start to revert back to what that probation officer told me I was, because I didn't have any other options. Right. So by the time I'm 18, I get out of my senior year of wrestling, and I'm feeling strong, I'm feeling capable, but then I'm feeling lost, and I have no direction. I have no idea where I'm going to go. And at this time, coming from where I came from, I literally did not have a comprehension or an understanding of what college was, that it even existed. I thought it was just something rich people did. And so like it just started to just take me down over and over and over again. I mean, How do you get out of that? How the fuck did you climb out of that? Tough love allowed me to hit rock bottom. So when I was doing that, I was acting out. I was just gone. I was partying. Started having sex and drinking all the time. And
you never did drugs.
Missing work.
You never like really abused drugs in a like I mean you'd see. Like,
no, man, I saw my mom and my sister overdose on that shit. Like I didn't want anything to do with it.
That's crazy.
So
that's like that probably saved your life. You know what I mean? Like that example like made you get through that shit because. Be too easy to fall off that fucking road, you know what I
mean? But like when things got bad, my attitude got worse. I was stubborn, I was hard-headed, I knew everything, F everyone else, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I started treating my aunt, who was the only person who had been stable for me.
Yeah.
And so by the time, we had a fallout and I was, driving the car that she provided me, talking on the Nokia 8700 cell phone that she provided me.
Hilarious.
And I started screaming at her and I'm like, I'll do whatever I want. And she's like, that's it, I'm taking your phone away. And I'm like, screw you, I got a job. I'll go buy another one tomorrow. Go ahead and take it. Right? Like
fucking dickhead. I'd be like, get out of here. Leave forever. You're the worst.
And by the time I was driving back home to the farmhouse when we were having this conversation.
Yeah.
By the time I got there, she was just in tears. And this is like a Saturday morning. I'd been out partying all night and coming home. It's like 9 a.m. She's in her nightgown, walks up to the sliding glass door, and I could just see in her face she's done. Like, she's got tears rolling in her eyes, and she doesn't want to do it, but she shuts the door and locks it. And I didn't have a key because we never locked the door unless we were all gone.
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it was out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And so she locked it and just looked at me, and I just like in that moment, bro, I knew that there was a shift, and there were two things I knew. One is I could not control how I was treating people. I didn't know how to stop it because the emotions and the hatred and the stereotypes and the like that feeling of anytime somebody looks at me, I'm assuming they're looking at me to fight me and I'm going to make it that, right? That mindset.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do anything different. So I walked back to the car, and as soon as I sat down in the car, I just started driving away knowing I could never go back there. And I just was in tears. I had 15-inch subs in the back and blacked out windows.
Yeah.
And usually I'm like leaned over, like bumping Tupac. And in this moment, man, like radio off, driving on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere with tears just streaming down my face. Not because she just rejected me, but because I knew that I made her reject me and I didn't want to, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And when I hit that rock bottom, I was homeless for a little while. Then I found some other idiots who were living the same lifestyle I was, got a crappy apartment in a small town. And I started seeing, like, as we were having parties, I started seeing a lot of the same people come to my house to have parties that I used to despise because I knew they were drug dealers.
Oh,
and I,
loop through your family and things like
yeah,
that. Fuck.
Yeah. So like they used to do shit in front of me when I was a kid. And I, like, when that started happening, I was like, no way.
That's crazy.
Like, I'm done with this. Screw everyone out, and I'm gone. And so I got out of, like, I left there and went back to the farmhouse, and she let me in. This was like 3 months later. I hadn't talked to her or seen her, and she welcomed me in, sat me down at the kitchen table, and I just looked at her, and she said, I think you've figured it out. You can come back here if you need to.
Damn.
But I knew, like, I still don't know how to control this. I will end up, like, making her hate me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to come back. And I said, you know what? This is what I've done. I'm going to do it. And I don't want to hurt anyone else because I know I'm going to. And, but then she said, okay, well, have you thought about college? And I said, I don't even know what it is. But if it's something that can get me out of here and away from these people and away from this lifestyle and just get me gone.
Sign me up.
I'm gone,
Yeah.
right? And
I love this part.
And she,
I already know the story.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
like, wait for it. She's a smart lady. Listen to what his aunt did right here.
So,
this part's great.
Like when I was acting up, during my senior year of high school, she sat me down one day and had me sign some papers. I didn't know what it was, and I never thought about it again. Well, she took out this envelope as I was sitting in that dining room table, humbled, shocked, like hating myself, thinking I'm nobody. And she said, open this. And I opened this manila envelope, and I dumped it out, and there were 3 envelopes in there. And they were acceptance letters to every state school and information for my financial aid. I didn't know what that meant, but she's like, Travis, you've been, like, all those papers I had you sign, those were your applications for college. You've been accepted to every state school.
So dope.
Like, you just have to go.
That's
right?
crazy, right? How crazy is that? Like, she's so fucking smart for that shit.
Right? And so I was like, can I go now? Like, can we just leave? I'll leave I don't need anything. I just want to go. And she's like, well, you made your bed. You got to lay in it for a little while, but classes start in 30 days. So when you're ready, we'll come load up all your stuff in the minivan, and we'll drive you to UNI.
Crazy.
Yeah.
We ended up going to the same college.
Yeah.
So Travis was there before me, and then while he's in college, like we talked about earlier, he's like kind of going over to Waterloo, which is like, it sucks because Cedar Falls and Waterloo are so close together, but so far apart. Very driven apart in that aspect where it's like the rundown, lower income area is Waterloo, and the people that all made money and, middle or upper class all live in Cedar Falls. So it's very spread apart, right? Very white and black, like literally.
For sure.
And so Travis is going over to Waterloo where a bunch of our friends are at and making music and shit. And this is kind of
That's what saved my life, man. I would be in the basement studio, like learning how to count measures in a song, learning how a vocal sound is recorded and aligned on a song track.
Right.
Like just learning all these basics for hours and hours and hours, trying to record. Chuck used to give me free recording studio time just because he knew that I had nothing better to do.
Right.
And it was like saving me from going to jail.
Right.
Right. And so he would just let me be in the studio practicing recording, even though I was so whack. Right?
I can't even imagine that shit.
It was horrible.
It was probably young Travis Tupac, like sitting there, like, yeah, it was. What he did was cool because Chuck is like, no one understands. Chuck is like, has been one of my biggest mentors or whatever in music and all this shit. So Chuck, his brother Dante, that's how we all got connected. Everyone's in this circle, but they all kind of ran that music scene, still do today. Like, that's who you go to. You know what I mean? So Travis is in a frat house in Cedar Falls, which I told you is like the upper class area, not relating to anyone in college there.
I couldn't connect with anybody there.
So he's going to the lower class area to work on music, just to try to find passion.
This is hilarious, especially for the Black with No Cream community.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna look at this camera right here.
We have cameras, people.
Yeah.
I don't have these on YouTube yet, but I'm gonna post them all at once very soon. So what he's talking about now, there's a visual.
Yeah, there is a visual to this, and if you're just listening, whatever. So, if you want to actually make any progress in any type of creative aspect that you want to pursue, you just have to hustle your ass off, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. 19 years old. I'm sitting in my dorm room in the fraternity house, like wanting to make rap music. And so I'm searching. This was back with, what was it, SoundClick?
Shit, I forgot.
SoundClick and MySpace, right?
MySpace days.
And I was doing searches in the Waterloo region for R&B and hip hop artists because I wanted to go learn how they make music. And I came across this group called IA.
Yeah, damn. Yep.
And it was these 3 like smooth dudes who had built up like a local celebrity as R&B
Wasn't it
artists.
Code Red?
It was IA originally.
IA originally, and then it became
Code
Red or something like that.
Code Red.
Code Red. They got big. Though.
So they had this song called Boyfriend, and they would perform this song in like all the high schools, and the girls would just swarm. Like they had to be escorted out of their own high school.
So lit.
Right?
They were that, but they also were on BT. Like they made it on
in like 07.
Yeah, 106 in Park. They made it on there and like won a competition. They got to perform on shit. You can find all that shit. It's hilarious. It's like insane. But they were like the dudes.
They were the dudes.
They opened up for fucking Nelly at our universities, like.
And I was at that concert, and I still didn't know who they were. I didn't put it together, right? And I just saw like this music is really good, and they had this song called "Boyfriend," and so I thought maybe they'll write me back if I do a remix of their Boyfriend song. And there were some like part measures in there where it was like not very many vocals.
Right.
So I ripped it off of SoundClick by playing it on my 2002 HP laptop and then pressing a free record button like in a software program that I downloaded. So I was playing it and then recording it on the microphone on the laptop at the same time.
Oh my God.
And then
bootleg.
And then I put it into the recording program, and I got a $20 microphone from Best Buy, and I wrote a verse, and I put it on this song called "Boyfriend." Girl, you need a boyfriend.
Bieber must have ripped that shit straight from them, motherfucker. That's crazy. But I mean, like and
then I sent it to their SoundClick email. Yeah. And a month goes by, nobody emails me. So I'm like, there's nobody else making good quality music around here. I don't want to connect with anyone else.
Right.
And after a month, I get a response. They're like, hey, my name is Chuck. I'm the producer for IA. Thanks so much for your submission. I'd be happy to connect with you and like help you learn about music. And then the next night, Chuck picks me up in his big ass Lincoln Navigator,
the same one
from
he
the
has.
frat house. Yeah,
damn, that
and
car's
then brings me out to the ghetto ass studio in the basement.
In the basement of their house, like this spot, it means so much to me because like when we were making music, Dante basically, I had class, right? I was at UNI, and it was my first class there, my first semester, and I'm at UNI, and I had this production class, and I'm like sitting in the class, and you don't know anybody, and I'm at I was at the community college before, now I'm at a university, it's my first class, and in comes walking Dante with this bright ass red fucking vest, right? This puffy red vest, his crazy hair, and he had these big ass glasses, like a superstar. What's up, everybody? You gotta come to my show, man. You gotta come to my show. He starts handing out flyers, and I'm like, yo, who's this dude? I gotta be fucking homies with this. He's flyering already. It's day one in class. He's like, I'll be here performing at the school, and I'm like, what the fuck? And like we went to the show, and it was super crazy.
Yeah.
And then Dante connected me with Chuck, and then when I was doing music, I would bring it back to them. They're like, yo, I see what you're like. They fucked with me real early. So then I'd be at their house every day, like driving back from Waterloo to my parents' house, you know what I mean? Going back home and like all that shit. It's like 5, 6 in the morning. Just you worked forever there.
I would be in the studio until 7 a.m. and then go to pharmacology class at 8 a.m.
What the fuck
on the
class
regular.
Is that?
Pharmacology, the study of medications. Like, because I was a business major at first, but then I switched to nursing, right?
I thought this was like some farming shit.
Like,
I
no,
was like, yo, what?
It was my college classes, right? And so I'd be there all night just studying music and then go to class.
Fuck.
I'd be in like my baggy jeans, and I'm like one dude out of all of the women in these like healthcare classes, and I'm like in my baggy jeans with like a Tupac t-shirt, right?
That's so crazy. But and so then Travis actually ends up. So he starts. Was it with Dante that you guys started doing the speaking again? Because I remember you guys flew to Vegas.
So I started doing this stuff when I started my career. I just felt really not satisfied. And so a string of events led me to working with a youth empowerment program. And so I was like, it was teenagers who grew up in foster care. When I met them, I was like, God, these kids are just like me. I'm just a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, and now I have a job, so I've got good money.
Right.
I become a trauma nurse at this time.
Okay.
And I just felt overworked and underpaid, and I didn't feel like I was living in my purpose. And I just didn't want to spend the rest of my life just feeling like I'm dying inside. And so I was looking for different opportunities, and this opportunity to work with these kids came up. And since I felt like I connected to them so much, I just felt like this innate need. Like, I have what can help them live better lives and break generational cycles. If I don't do this, I won't ever forgive myself. Damn. And so I started volunteering with this program. Then I started leading the regional chapter, and one thing led to another. And we had the opportunity to actually start similar programs in other states. And it became a statewide program, right?
Crazy.
And those experiences put me in Las Vegas at a certain point, where we took some of our youth leaders from Iowa and then brought them to some of the hardest kids in Las Vegas. And when I say hardest kids in Las Vegas, these are the kids who grew up around the entertainment industry. Their moms are hookers. Their their dads are gone,
Yeah.
right? Like they'd have nothing and nobody,
right?
And they're homeless and they're gangsters and like they're just hard.
Yeah.
And when we were doing this and trying to turn them into youth leaders, it was just so difficult, and they were fighting everybody. And there was like one kingpin who was a gang member, like, and everyone was afraid of him, and he was just ruining everything for like 75 kids. And I just called him out in the middle of nowhere, and I knew he liked to rap. So I started rap battling him and like calling him out on everything that was wrong about his behavior, like during that event. And after that, like the state directors of the Child Welfare Agency, they like every year after that for like three years in a row with like multiple different events, they had me come out as the keynote speaker for all their youth conferences.
Damn.
And then during that time, they wanted, like, I think on the second year, this is like 2008, the second year of this, when they asked me to come out and keynote, they wanted me to do other things. And at that time, I was like in the process of starting to work with Dante. And Dante and Coda Red had just gone through a breakup. Right. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, this guy's been on BET. He's done all these cool things. Like I'm like a fan right now. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ask these guys, Coda Red, if they'd be willing to help me make a song to inspire this youth crew for this event. And I'm like, I don't know how to make a good song, but I can write a verse or something like that. But can you guys do a chorus for me?
Yeah.
And they all, as a group, agreed, even though they weren't really doing a lot together anymore. And they said, okay, meet me at the studio at 4:00 on Saturday. And I showed up at the studio. Chuck had left the door open for me. I sat down in the dark waiting. Nobody showed, right? Hour and a half goes by. Guess who walks in?
Chuck?
Dante.
Dante
walks in, and I'm like, dude, hey, like, look at this stuff that I'm doing, man. You gotta see this. Like, I really believe in this. I think it can make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And come in the living room and like, let me show you this video that I'm working on. And I was making like a PowerPoint slideshow that talks about the emotional needs that these kids need in order to feel empowered, right? And he's like, dang, man, like that's really cool. Like I really believe in that, and I want to help support you. And he's like, I want to partner with you. And in my mind, like, I just watched him on BET.
Right, just like
so
that.
I'm like, what?
And they're flying out to LA, talking
like,
to labels.
Oh, they like
the Backstreet Boys manager had them in their office and shit.
Yeah, like guns to their head because another group wanted the deal. Like that type of stuff was happening in that time frame.
Right.
But he's the only one who showed up, and we shook hands and like started a business venture together to speak and perform. We called it entertainment and teaching with Dante and Travis, right? And so we would go to schools, churches, conferences, blah blah blah.
There was one where they put you up in Vegas in like a penthouse suite, like
the conference planner's husband was like the manager of event space for one of these really big hotel casinos.
Yeah.
And so they got us a $5,000 per night room. Like
those two dudes balling out and fixing shit. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy though. And then, I mean, fast forward to everything that has happened since then. Travis, it's interesting because Travis, he just talked about becoming a nurse, and he's being a nurse and knows kind of like, I think it was around the time we did Heart of a Student, you were kind of like, yo, like I can't do this every day. But the only reason you became a nurse was to take care of your nephew.
So, there's two reasons I became a nurse. One, because I was studying business, right, my freshman year of college, and I saw other people graduating and going into dead corporate jobs where they're hustling their asses off for 10 years to move up from $35K a year.
Fuck.
And I'm just like, I want to have a life.
Yeah.
Like, I want to write rap songs. I want to write poetry. I want to do whatever I want. And then one day, somebody I was working with who happened to be a nurse said, hey, have you thought about becoming a registered nurse? And I'm like, no, I would never do that. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, I'm a man, right? And she's like, no, you're really good with patients. And did you know that you can make $25 or $30 an hour working 3 12-hour shifts every week and have 4 days off to do whatever you want? And,
bling, bling, bling,
and
bling,
as soon as my shift was done that day, I went straight to the college to sign up for nursing.
Crazy.
And I also knew that my nephew was going through a lot of the same crap that I was going through. Like when I was 9, and I knew that if I had full-time revenue with 3 days a week, I'd be able to help take care of him when I graduated college.
Right, and then you basically bring him under your roof, got a house and everything. And
bought a house for him.
Bought a house for your nephew.
Yeah.
Insane.
When I was 22.
22 years old, buys this house, you know. Motherfucker lived in a trailer court and had nothing, and bought a house to take care of a kid that was going through the same exact shit, which is very noble. And then
I mean, it's one of those like spiritual moments where when I was 19, I had a nightmare that I was watching my nephew be taken away from me the same way I watched a social worker take me away from my mom, right? And I woke up in sweat and tears. And I vowed right then I'll never watch him go to foster care. And so it was just a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I made that decision when I was 19. Like, it's going to happen. As soon as I'm financially stable, it's done.
Yeah, and he did it. And then, like, kind of gliding through, the Heart of a Student thing just kind of popped up. You guys started putting it together, and you were like, yo, I connect with this so much more, and this time is so much more valuable to me spent here than it is at a hospital.
Yeah.
Like, I want to start doing this again. So you start doing it. You started rebranding your whole, you had, I think before, were you guys like the top ranked Google, like?
So my website, travisloyd.net, was top ranked #1 in the nation for youth motivational speaker.
On Google?
On Google.
Fuck.
At the time. And I built that website by myself. Talk about the hustle. Like when I realized that there's event planners who pay performers who do like positive hip hop, and there's event planners who pay speakers, and these event planners get on the web and search Google for youth motivational speaker or positive hip hop music performer. Like,
you just took the keywords.
I started studying SEO and built my website to be based on those keywords. And then within 6 months of implementing that search engine optimization, I started getting book gigs. Like, people were calling me, and like I was doing $500 for a keynote for 45 minutes for middle school kids, like that type of stuff.
Right, and that picked up, and you start getting, after we did Heart of a Student, the shit was so fun, and like we were trying to implement that into the next year, and it didn't work out, and you started booking more gigs for yourself. So meanwhile, you'd be taking jobs, you'd take shifts at the hospital.
So, I was in a transition phase where I didn't know who I was or where I was going to go. I knew that I had experienced something that lit me up, but I didn't know that it was possible for that to be reality every day. Right. And so in my mind, I was starting to get, past my mid-20s, and I'm thinking I have to achieve XYZ before I'm 30. And so at the time, I actually had already applied to a doctoral program. I had been enrolled in a doctoral program to become a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I was going to open a psychiatric clinic. And I was taking prerequisites, because I was also considering medical school at the time.
Right.
And then I was working odd jobs and taking shifts in the hospital while like figuring all this out. But Heart of a Student is what changed the game for me, because I realized, like, holy crap, we just touched 13,000 people in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Kids who are going to go out and change the world.
Right.
And so many of them were so capable of saying, hey, you changed my life in this way, and I'm going to do this because of this, right? And that to me was more meaningful than any $150,000 salary sitting in a psych clinic, right? Writing prescriptions for drugs I don't believe in.
It just made too much sense, and the value we got back from giving a couple hours of our time. You know what I mean? Like, I remember doing it. I remember the first day at Heart of a Student, we packed up in an SUV, in a suburban SUV, and it was fucking winter. It was freezing out. And I didn't really know anyone except for Dante. Like, I knew the Brazilian twins, but I didn't know them very well.
Yeah.
And Chuck wasn't there. So it was just Dante that that's who I met. And then we're packed out in this car, and we're driving to somewhere on the farthest side of Iowa. So like 4 hour trip.
4 hours,
probably.
yeah.
Middle of the night, it's freezing, it's snowing. I'm like, damn, we might die in this car. I don't know how Dante drives.
And we're doing like 2 90-minute assemblies in the morning.
We literally pulled up to this school. I have no idea. I didn't understand the concept yet. I just knew I was filming something. To, hey, we have to be ready in 30 minutes. And we set up, and you guys were like, I don't know if you ever rehearsed this shit, but it felt like it was because it was just like bang, bang. I think you met us there. You didn't even drive with us to the shit. You just pull up in your car, throw on this blazer, and you like come walking through, and you're like, hey guys, blah, blah, who the fuck is that guy? And then all of a sudden you walk out, you're like, I don't even know.
It was like an emotional spoken word drama piece.
Right, but you just walk out and you're just like looking at everyone. They're kind of quiet, like what the hell's happening? And all of a sudden you start just giving them like your A game. Like, do you remember what it was?
The piece?
Yeah, like give me the first few lines. If
gosh, I don't remember.
Damn, I can't remember it either. It's driving me crazy because I used to know it because you did it like every day.
Yeah.
And it would just be like, I have a dream or whatever. That's not fucking shit.
Actually, that might have been part of the.
It probably was, but I felt like that
yeah.
was something you say, and people are like, who the fuck is this guy? And then the next thing you know, you just did poem for 6 minutes straight, and they're like so captive. And then Dante comes out and he starts singing. It was like, these kids would go so crazy. And when we did the Q&As afterwards, they'd ask all the right questions. We tried to make it so we allowed them to have their phones out when that was not okay in school.
Yeah.
We were like, yo, see this thing on the backboard? And that was like, remember when I first came out, I was like, they're like, hey.
You got Ben, you're like, you guys got to brand it. You got to brand it. Make sure you put your Twitter logos on the screen. And we're like, what are you talking about?
You guys kept being like, hey, if you want to talk to us, tweet at me, Travis Lloyd 44221. If you want to talk to Dante, tweet at him. And like, it'd be all these shitty.
And so you made me change my Twitter name.
I made him. I was like, change it to Travis Lloyd Speaks. I'm like, you have to do that. I'm like, that would make sense. And then I did. I made like a quick Photoshop banner the next 90-minute thing, and it had it up there, and everyone's engagement was way more crazy.
Yeah.
The kids could look at it. If they had a question on the fly, they were asking it. We were answering it in real time. So if they were scared, they had a way to ask, without having to raise their hand, and it opened up so much more space. But we did that. I know. I just love talking about Harvard Student because it was so crazy.
It was super dope.
It was such an amazing
But that experience is what made me shock myself and say, okay, whatever this feeling is, this is great advice for anybody.
Yeah.
When you experience that feeling where you're on fire, you feel like you're living in your purpose, whatever it is, try to recreate it as much as possible. And that's what I did. And so after Heart of a Student, man, I forfeited my deposit at the University of Iowa. I dropped out of the doctoral program. I ended up quitting my job, and I went 4 months without an income. And I said, whatever that was, that feeling, I need to recreate it some way and somehow. And I know that it's possible now because I've felt it. Right. And so that's like during that 4-month period is when I finally got that contract, wrote my book, built my platform. And then right as I was about to lose my house, like they sent me a repossession notice from the bank. Right when that was about to happen, South Dakota happened. And I got like $15,000 to go talk.
Mind you, he's getting $15,000 to talk, but that money doesn't come until a while after you do the job.
30 to 45 days after, because it was a government contract, so they don't pay anything ahead of time.
Yeah, so they pay 30 or 45 days after you deliver your whatever you're contracted to do. And so we go out, we drove to... did we drive there or fly?
Yeah, man.
Dude, this was a bitch.
We drove and like I barely had enough to cover the rental car.
No, he didn't have any money. Like he was literally losing his house as we go, and he's like, "Yo, I'll pay you a couple $100 if you can come. Like I'll get you the money, I promise." And we're going. He had to like borrow we were staying at his house in Des Moines. We had to get up early the next morning to take off, and he like is borrowing money from his aunt, like a couple $100, so he could just get us by with food and gas.
Oh yeah.
So you barely could afford anything. We're going by there. The hotels were covered by them, I think. Right?
No.
So you had to pay for the hotel?
That all came out of my account.
Maybe that's why you were tapped out, because I remember he was like checking his bank statements and trying to make sure like the money was there and like.
And then I ended up with like $350 of overdraft fees because a bunch of things processed before I got money from my aunt.
It was, and I didn't even realize like all that shit. I was just like, damn, that's kind of crazy. Like it didn't really make sense to me that he was being serious. You know what I mean? Because like I know people are always like, fuck, bro, I can't spend money. But he was like, yo, I don't have any fucking money.
Look at my account, bro.
Yeah, like zero. And we got through the whole trip and drove all the way back, and he ends up getting his check and everything fucking worked out. And that set him up, and he rebranded. He got his site.
Launched a new website. Put out a book. The book was booming. Like, he would go to different events, and they would pre-buy his shit. We flew to Pennsylvania. We flew to New Mexico. We flew just having a product when you're doing stuff as an entrepreneur, like, no matter if you're a public speaker or you're an author or you're a consultant or you're a photographer, like, whatever it is, you are seen as an expert, and you are afforded tons more opportunities if you just have a product to sell. And not only that, but if you have it, boom, there's another, you go in to work with a group, a company, an organization, there's another 50, 100, 300 units that you can sell where their organization will purchase it to provide it to everybody because you're the expert and they want to remember you.
Absolutely. And that's a great learning tool for them to walk away with. Damn. Fuck. And it's crazy too because you know, one thing that's dope is what Travis does is, and you never see it coming and I even come into it, and I've always tried to give you my 2 cents on shit. When it came from videos or we did the photos and shit, and I would always be like, yo, you should try this. And he knows this world so fucking well where I'd be like, yo, we should edit the video like this. He's like, no, that's not how we got to do it. He's like, these people want the video to look like this. And he'd show me shit. I'd be like, damn, that's kind of boring. Like, why don't we take it? He's like, trust me. And then he was right. And that shit was fucking...
And then, like, within months, that video that I was like, no, just do this, make it simple, do this, this, and this. And you're like, wanting to make it cool? And I'm like, no.
Don't make it cool.
Some of those videos, within a matter of months, event planners saw those videos and booked me. Like,
yeah. Because it was, like, very real. Like, I obviously wanted to make it more dramatic and more, like, intense. Not dramatic, like, as far as the story goes, but just, like, make the edit crazy and do what I do now that if you listen to this, you know what I do. But it was just fun trying to learn it. But then I would also turn around and pitch Travis on shit. Like, he would come in, like, suited up. And I'd be like, yo, fuck that shit. Come in a fucking button-up long-sleeve T-shirt and some jeans and see what happens. And I'm like, because then they're going to look at you like you're the young Travis Lloyd expert where you don't have to walk in and be a suit to make them understand or take you serious. Because at this point, we look at a kid, like right now you have kids on YouTube that are fucking 19 years old buying $8 million homes in the hills, you know what I mean? Because they're making YouTube videos and they could walk into an event, get paid 50 to 100K. Wearing fucking a tank top or no shirt if they wanted to and still be taken serious. You know what I mean? I'll be like, yo, try that on those motherfuckers. Like, see what they do then. Like, because I just felt like it connected more. Like, people would see you like, oh, cool. He reminds me of the kid that I just saw walking down the street. Or he reminds me of the kid that checked me out at the grocery store or whatever.
And that's super dope. And I've done that some. But what I found is there's a dual perspective for me, right?
Yeah.
The reason why events like me, I mean, aside from the inspiration, aside from the advice, like that type of stuff, is because I can offer the perspective of a kid who's been through crap, but also somebody who's been a trained, educated professional working in those same systems and advising those systems on how to improve outcomes.
Right.
And so for me, what I found was sometimes that works.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually prefer sometimes to dress it up. And that's a part of my brand now.
No, for sure. Yeah. And I think it was just fun back then trying shit. Like we were
just
like
we didn't have no clue.
We had no idea.
That was just 4 years ago.
I'd be like, yo, try wearing a long sleeve shirt. You'd be like, cool. Yo, try just wearing all black. Like, all right, cool. Yo, try wearing the suit again tomorrow. All right, cool. And like we would just play with shit. But it was just crazy. Going back to the story about the
while I was like trying to buy you a taco for helping me.
Yeah, and I'm like, thanks. Thanks, bro. But motherfucker paid me every time. He'd be like, yo, I'll give you $200 if you come on this trip with me, and I'll take care of all the other shit. But just, I'm like, all right, cool, fuck it. He's my homie. I believe in him. He'll do dope shit. And we'll get paid later. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was it. And the PayPal came through. But what was cool is, like, if you go back, and he talks about the officer that told you, like, we'll see you again soon. You know, your what am I thinking of? Tell me the words.
Probation officer.
Probation officer.
Yeah.
Going back to that moment, when he told that story, I remember I don't remember what city we were in, and you told that story, and like, I think there was another probation officer in the crowd that stood up, and he was like a very strong man, and he like apologized, I think, for that probation officer. Yeah. But like took the lesson, like, for sure.
He was like almost in tears, and I think we got a testimonial video from him.
We did. He was so dope.
And he was just like, I now know what I need to do differently, and I apologize to every kid in the past that I've wronged in any way, and I will always connect with these kids and believe in them from now on.
Yeah, man.
You know, like,
that shit's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But like, what happens if you weren't there? What happens if he didn't hear that speech? Would he have realized that this was a thing? You know what I mean? Like, that's what's very valuable about this shit. Very valuable about this shit. And it sucks because for like what you do, some of these people that are in your shoes as like a motivational speaker or whatever it is, like, that's your livelihood, right? That's going to pay the bills. Is you going around and speaking. You offer such a great service, and your story is so unique that it makes too much sense that you should be booked fucking 365 days a year. But that's not the case. Like, everyone, it's now picked up. But like when we were starting, I'm like, yo, this shit, what the fuck? We should be out every weekend. We should be flying every week.
I didn't understand the business.
No.
The business of speaking is a business. it is an intricate, detail-oriented, functioning business that requires knowledge and expertise to navigate, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned that now. And there's a lot of things that are happening now that I wanted to happen 5 years ago, but when the time is right.
Slow roasting.
Yeah.
But it's cool now because you've even started a program where you are helping other people figure out how to do what they're doing because you've learned the business that well. You're in and out.
What happened was, as I was starting to navigate this business and get opportunities, people would see my photos of me on stage in front of thousands of people, and they'd be like, man, how do you do that? Like, I have a story. I want to make a difference. How do I do it? And I had so many people coming to me like every single week in my inbox, in my DMs, and on my website contact form, that I just said, okay, I can't spend the time with these people that I want to because it's happening so much that I'm just giving away free time and it's a pain in my ass now.
Yeah.
So I created a program, and now anytime somebody reaches out to me, I say, I tell you what, if you're serious, what I want you to do is go look at the frequently asked questions on my website, and it gives some tips about getting started as a speaker. If you do all of those tips and you still want my advice, you can schedule a paid coaching call where I'll share with you about my coaching program to help people become professional speakers.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That makes too much sense. That's why I started Black with No Cream, because it's like I'm constantly getting bombarded by people for questions on, hey man, I want to fucking buy a camera. What camera should I buy? I'm like, I don't know. What are you trying to shoot, bro? Like, and it's asking me as if I have all the time in the world to just answer these questions, and I want to. Okay, what are you trying to shoot, bro? Where do you live? Are you shooting inside? Are you shooting outside? What lenses do you have? Do you have lenses? Like, I have so many questions for you.
You need lenses?
You have to have lenses? People ask these questions. It's like fucking crazy. But after a while, I just realized, like, okay, I don't want to give up. And I know a lot of photographers, videographers and directors and shit that are traveling, and they have the same situation. Kids are hitting them up all the time, and they just don't answer. They just don't talk to them unless it's like a hot chick, right? Like, they just won't talk to them. And I'm like...
Well, you got to have priorities.
Yeah, for sure. You have to have priorities, and hot chicks are important in this world. But, but like, to me, being a kid that's from the Midwest, being a kid that had no resources, being a kid that used the internet to learn shit, I think it's important for me to turn around and give this back. Otherwise, if I don't do that, none of this shit's important. Like, the same thing with you. Like, if we're not giving something back, what the fuck is the point? Like, to get rich and die? Like, what the fuck does that do? You know what I mean? Literally, what does it do? Nothing. If you can't impact someone's life, I don't think there's a point to any of this shit. And so I had people that affected me, and it shifted the way I do everything. And it goes back to you guys, to like other people that you guys don't even know. All that shit comes into play, but I think if I could put everyone in a space, so like creating the private group or whatever and putting them there, at least it's a place where I might not be able to be active all day, but they could ask a question. There's someone else out there that can answer that question that might even be more fucking knowledgeable than me. Like, I don't know about wedding photography anymore. I don't do that shit no more. Like, this dude does, though, every day, and he's got plenty of time to write an in-depth response to you. And I think that's so clutch. And I would love to... Like, that's what we talk about, because he's, like I said, Travis is doing this shit with people, and now he's getting paid to teach people how to do it, which, as you should, because the fucking years of experience, you can't just get that out the gate. No one has that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we have years in this shit. And I don't, like, speaking, we just talked about this the other day. I'm like, yo, you should get me and Andrew speaking.
Yeah, we're going to.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking tight. I want to do that shit.
Well, and it's going to give me an excuse to come spend more time in LA on a monthly basis, because I'm going to have to work with you guys, set up your brand as speakers.
That's what I'm talking about.
I really just want to come back to LA.
No, I know. But
so I might
real,
work on some of it.
But for real, like, I would love to do it, and I've always said it. Like, I've always said I want to go back and speak at UNI. Like, I would love to go back to the college and
That's
speak
easy.
there. I know, but I just haven't done anything to do it. But, like, to put that is just another form of this, to do a podcast, to have a private group, to respond to messages, to go speak to people. Like, I feel like that all helps, and it's tight that you can get paid doing it, for sure. That's tight. But, like, I mean, you get paid doing anything. I could start selling, like, my fingernail clippings and say it matters, and people will probably buy that shit. But, like, it comes back down to spreading and pushing it forward. Like, I think that's very powerful, and I love that that's what you're doing. I'm excited to work with you on that shit, because I think we could really fuck shit up as far as me being your first explicit creator that you're going to start, you know what I mean? Because I'm not going to do a gig where I can't say fuck, because that's tight. But, and that's just because I'm ignorant. But I don't know, man. I think that, is it challenging to try to package that, you know what I mean, in a way for people to, because imagine you get someone that just isn't getting it.
So here's the thing is, when I first started down this path 10 years ago in the professional speaking industry, it was really difficult. I mean, I've put months and months and months of research in. I've launched multiple websites. I've screwed it up. I've wasted tens of thousands of dollars. I've paid for training. I've paid like $3,000 for one meeting in a day.
Yeah.
Like it just, once I've gone through all of that, now I have a system in my mind. And so when somebody is sharing with me who they are, what their impact is, and what they want to do, I automatically know how to position them, what markets are able to pay them, and how to organize their brand and message to be viable in that market. Because in any market, they all have a budget. And for speaking specifically, they have specific line items that they're allowed to use that funding for. So if the goal is to increase college access, well, your presentation has to be designed in order to have a learning bullet point of inspiration for going to college, right? Or whatever it is. And then it has to be packaged in that direction for that specific market. And it has to be done for every single market that you want to impact. And so it's just intuitive for me now to just say, this is who you are, this is what you do, well, this is how we need to package it.
And there's so many motherfucking fake ass people that are out there speaking and getting checks all day long, and these corporate companies are just like, oh, you just helped us so much. But I think I've seen people do that shit where I like, this doesn't resonate with, I know anyone in this room, but maybe for like the hour during the keynote, like I've seen that shit where I'm like, I could see why we're all hyped about this right now, but when you walk away next week, you're not thinking about that person's name. You know what I mean? You're not thinking about what that person was talking to you about because it was all bullshit. You know what I mean? If you could really instill true, valuable content and facts in people, I think that that's what makes all this shit like matter so much. You know what I mean? Like, so say someone comes up to you and they're hella loaded and they're willing to spend the bread, but they're never gonna provide insight to people. Would you still be interested in co-signing that for the sake of getting the check, or would you be honest with them and be like,
I ain't got time for that.
No? $1 million. I need you, dog. I need you. I'm going to spend the next year with you, and I'm going to give you $1 million to talk about, I don't know yet, but I need you to help me figure it out.
It depends on what their goal is. $1 million, sure, you could just hang out with me while I work. Right? But like, and I can design your package, but I'm not going to co-sign it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not going to get you booked.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to introduce you to my connections.
Right.
And but I'll take your $1 million.
At the end of the day, I think what really needs to happen right now is Travis, one of his videos or whatever, needs to go super fucking ham viral.
Right.
Because that's all it takes for this shit to happen, but where Travis could truly impact the right people. Because I feel like we're in a space where your message is so important, and I just think that the world needs to know about this shit. So if this is a fucking jumpstart to a few hundred people understand it,
so great. Check this out. There's a couple of things that I'm doing right now to start facilitating that.
Sick.
One is, as you know, I'm getting ready to go through a rebrand. Mm-hmm. And so everything that I've done right now and the videos that you helped me make, that's all old now.
Old as fuck.
I look different now, right? It's been over 4 years since a lot of my branding photos have been done. Right. It's time for an update. And so my new brand is, instead of focusing on Travis Lloyd, motivational speaker, influencer, hip hop artist, it's going to be Travis Lloyd, fostering change that matters. Right? So then when you go to my website, it'll be more modern, it'll be updated. My logo is going to be my signature. And then there's going to be a little thing on there that says event planners, click here. And those are the people who pay me, right? Those are the people who have the big checks.
Right.
So I'm going to cater to them on my website.
Yeah.
They click that, they go to another page where it says, choose your change. Fostering change in ... And then there's a button for each segment that I create change in. Fostering change in education, fostering change in mental health, fostering change in juvenile justice, fostering change in personal development.
Fostering change in other. Because I need you to talk about fostering change in fucking, I don't know.
Right,
I'm trying to answer any joke I can think of, but I can't go with anything funny. Fuck.
But that's going to be
my host.
That's going to be my rebrand, and I'm going to launch that with a new book called Fostering Change That Matters. And then that's also going to be coming out with my new podcast that's been in development. Originally, it was titled Fostering Change in America.
Yeah.
Now it's titled the Fostering Change Podcast, right?
Dope.
So all of it's going to come under that. And the Fostering Change That Matters book is going to cater to a wider audience, because in that book, I'm going to do similar to how my podcast is going to be. Like my podcast is going to be a different theme every month, fostering change in different realms. And the book will address the 7 to 10 core realms that impact every one of us.
Dope. So you already put the title out there, and you're kind of setting yourself up with another deadline so that you have
exactly.
And you're going to wait till the last 30 days before you write the shit
and the podcast is already developed, but I'm looking for an intern to help with the back end because I got too many things on the burner right now.
Right.
And as soon as I have somebody in place to do post-production, then that's going to start publishing with my new branded website in the first quarter of 2018.
So if anyone's listening to this right now and they want to apply for that internship, how can they do it?
So you guys
should jump on that shit.
Right? So you can text the word change, CHANGE, to 444-999.
Savage. You already had that set up?
Bro, I do this in my events. That's how I get thousands of signups. If I do a big conference and I'm like, hey, if anyone wants the videos that I used in this presentation today, just text change to 444-999 and I put it up on the screen.
Damn, I need to do that shit. That's tight. All right, I'm going to do that.
And so that's going to do is put you on my main email list from my website, travisloyd.net.
Right.
And that way you'll be able to receive updates. Now, the one thing that Black with No Cream members might want to be updated about is a project that I'm doing with a nonprofit that I'm also working with. Mm-hmm. So, as we talked about earlier, like there's this innate desire to give back, right?
Right.
And so for the last 3 years, I've been starting to give back and volunteering with an organization that's a national nonprofit called Foster Care Alumni of America. Our goal is to connect, empower, and help all those who came from foster care as adults flourish as adults, right? So we have state chapters where they're able to get connected, where they're able to do legislative advocacy and like change laws, while also building a network of lifelong connections who support them and guide them.
Dope.
And one of the things that I want to do is help this organization grow to be bigger. And I want to do that creatively because I need to bring the organization to the 21st century. Right. And so I'm going to go back to my roots and I want to create an album, and I want Black with No Cream members to help in producing this album and being a part of this album. I want to showcase adults, people who are alumni of the foster care system. I want to showcase their raps, their songs, their poetry, their stories, and turn it into a full album produced by Black with No Cream members and members of Foster Care Alumni of America.
That shit's tight.
Change to 444-999.
444-999. I'll post that shit in the show notes too. Damn, that's dope as fuck. And I know there's kids that want to be involved in that because I know that they started trying to do this in Black with No Cream. They wanted to start like a Black with No Cream mixtape and like do all this shit.
But this is tied now. This is going to be tied to a national organization, a national nonprofit organization.
Sick.
And we can get national partners. Like some of our recent partners are like Disney, the Fosters television show on ABC.
So like real ass exposure.
Yeah. So if we can create this and make it viable, make it professional, have it all blood, sweat, and tear volunteers that care about this cause, boom.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How do you get involved in that? Say it one more time. If you listen, right here.
All you got to do is get your cellular device out.
You guys know what that is?
You got to unlock it with your face or your finger.
You're so fucking stupid. 444. What? 999.
Text change.
Change.
CHANGE to 444-999.
Is it capital sensitive?
I don't think so, but make it all capital because it's cool.
Swag.
Yeah.
And if you don't hear anything back, just do it all lowercase, just because he fucked up. All right. All right. That's fucking great. I want to wrap this up because basically I asked everyone in the group, allow them to ask you questions.
Oh, sure.
So I have some questions I want you to go through and answer those. But
let's do it. Are we gonna do like a power session?
Yeah, just kind of bang them out. You don't have to stick in them too long, but I feel like we haven't even. There's so much more to talk about just because we've done so much shit and been through some shit. And Travis is the type of dude that I call, or he'll call me when there's like a breakthrough and some shit. Like, bro, check this out. This just happened. Like, I'm inches away. I'm fucking moments away from this thing to click off. And it's crazy because we probably don't even know that we got those victories. Like, say he calls me and tells me, this is about to happen. It's going to happen next month. And then that does happen next month. And by that point, there's a new victory that we want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that victory doesn't even matter anymore. We always have those. And I feel like it's important to put those types of people in your circle because it's just a boost club. Like we're just going to boost each other up. And we're going to do that over and over again to push each other because that's what you have to do. And if you decide to stick in your own lane and you don't want to talk to people about it and shit, it's very hard to stay motivated.
And you got to be willing to give to those people too. Like when just the other day, I called you, Ben, it might've been yesterday. And I'm like, Ben, I really want to do this rebrand and I really just want to have your brain on the planning of it for 1 hour. Can we schedule a call? I've got a vision. I just need to make sure it's tweaked.
Right.
And without hesitation, you're like, okay, call scheduled for Tuesday night. Right.
Easy.
Yeah.
So we'll be working on it Tuesday night if anyone wants to tweet at us and be involved as well. All right, so let's get to these questions. Let me kind of pull it up here. So I let them know who you were, and I did at the same time. TF he's gonna pee here in like 30 minutes. And he's gonna pee? No, he's gonna be here and maybe he'll piss. I don't know, but he'll be here in 30 minutes. We're gonna do his podcast next. So I put you guys both in the same thing, and everyone's kind of talking to both of you guys. But someone, let's see, Corey Caltado. Damn, I'm so bad at saying fucking names. My mom, she keeps telling me, like, dude, you have to learn these people's names. They'll connect with you more. I'm sorry, Corey.
You got the first part right.
It's okay. Shit right, yeah. He says, Travis, what are your thoughts on meditation? I find it very effective. How important do you think it is? And any tips on how to adjust your mindset when you feel like you're hitting low points in life? Thanks.
Got you. So the second part of that, tips for how to adjust your mindset when you're hitting low parts in life, I'd say there's two things you can do. One is when you're out of that funk, make sure you plan to do goal setting and have specific things that you want to do in your life that you have to look forward to.
Hell yeah.
And that way, like, that even when bad shit happens, you've got something to look forward to. And when you can stay focused on that, you are more likely to stay positive and understand that, bad shit's going to happen again, and I know I'll get out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's very good.
When it comes to meditation, I would say...
do you meditate?
I do a version of meditation, right?
Headspace?
And
have you heard of that?
I have not.
Okay, I'll show it to you.
But I used to get overwhelmed by this idea of meditation because it's just like this big, like, random idea, and I don't know what it is, and is that too spiritual or is it weird? And what I found, it can be whatever it is for you, right? It just has to be you creating the time and space for mental clarity.
Yeah.
I meditate while I drive sometimes, and I'll intentionally drive going nowhere.
Right.
Just to, like, because when my hands are busy, I'm focused on staying alive because I got to stay on the road. My head can just clear and go nowhere. And so I'll do that sometimes, just gone. Other times, if things are really stressful, I'll force myself. I actually did this with somebody else recently, just the other day, and I force myself to know that there is a time when I feel strong. There is a time when I feel capable. There is a time when I feel empowered. And I think about that time and realize that whatever's happening right now, I have the power to stop my thoughts and focus on creating that powerful feeling in me. And so I just sit down, I close my eyes. Sometimes I'll touch my temples and just kind of rock back and forth or sit and think, and then try not to think. And sometimes you can count to do that or whatever, but even just doing that for 30 seconds can help shock you out of that constant negative thinking.
Yeah, you look like you're about to turn into Wolverine or some shit.
Right. I am Wolverine.
And I was very relaxed listening to you say that.
Right?
It was like, you should be like a meditation teacher. I was like, damn, this is nice. Trayshawn Blount says, he asked actually both of you guys, but to Travis, is it better to put in, all right, he asked a couple questions. Let's go through them real quick and we'll pick out one to answer just because time-sensitive shit. Is it better to put your own personal emotions in your writing or leave personal things out? Just give a quick response.
Own personal emotions in your writing? Oh, yes, do it. Don't leave it out. Most people leave things out because they're afraid of what other people think. Screw that.
Fuck yeah. To Travis, what type of trials did you face releasing your book? Is it important to you that everyone is affected at your speeches, or is losing one okay? You already heard about the book situation. We had some fun trials.
So when the first few years I was speaking, I oftentimes felt, oh my gosh, like I did horrible, and I don't think I impacted anybody. But what has happened, without fail, every single event, there's always been at least one person who has said that I've caused them to not want to commit suicide, or I've caused them to change their viewpoint on their career, or that they feel more inspired to rebuild their relationship with their mother they haven't talked to in 5 years. One thing like that happens at every single event, and sometimes there's events where a lot of people don't like me or they don't connect to it, and I've realized that I have to just accept that it's not about me.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is for them in their own journey at that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. He also said, what is it like tending to another person's offspring that has been given away?
So I've never actually fostered myself outside of my nephew. And I think
he's talking about like if you were to go speak to a foster kid, like in a foster home.
Got you.
Maybe.
Got you.
Like, what's it like talking to that person?
So I've done that a lot, actually, because when I was a mental health crisis worker with law enforcement, there'd be a lot of times where kids were in what's called out-of-home placement, group home, foster home, adoptive home, shelter, whatever. And those are kids who have been taken away, being cared for by other people. And it's oftentimes they face a lot of crisis because they've experienced a lot of trauma. And what I found in those situations is you got to take yourself out of it, and you got to not think that what their problems are a reflection of who you are, and instead just connect with them and help try to understand who they are, where they're coming from, what they went through, what's the reason why they're going through this, and then view them as somebody who is just hurting and needs somebody to be there.
Dope.
And when you can do that, you can just view people as humans who have all the same needs, and some of them aren't met.
Right.
And if you can help meet one of those needs in that moment, then that's all you need to do.
Yeah. Job well done. Andre Cooley said to Travis, what's your thoughts on meditation and yoga as it pertains to mental health? That's interesting that two people have gone to that.
Yeah,
we just talked about it.
So when you talk about like a holistic viewpoint approach to mental health, anything that helps improve your physical wellness and improve your mental wellness is going to help. It's just a matter of finding which helps you. So some people who maybe are really high energy and they need aggressive workouts, maybe yoga is not a good fit for them.
Right.
So don't do it. But if it's something that you're called to, it definitely can help calm your mind. And when your mind is calmed, it also helps calm your body and heals your body.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Damn, I don't even know how to. Damn, I'm really gonna fuck this up. I've seen this girl post so much on Black with No Cream, and I never. How would you say? How would you pronounce this? Ayasha. Is that
Ayasa.
No. You think? Oh, I'm gonna do the
speech.
I'm gonna let it speak. The computer. When in doubt, go to Siri. Speech. Ayasha?
Ayoshi?
Ayasha? Well, let's go with Ayasha, and I'm sorry if I fucked that up. But she said, for Travis, what is one of the greatest struggles that you dealing with foster children and such? I also was in the system for a majority of my life, being in various homes and dealing with different lifestyles is what is a huge inspiration for me.
Gotcha. So what I would say to you is if you have a talent and you want to be a part of the program, text change
I love that.
to 444-999 so that you can be updated when that's happening, because we want to showcase your talents. And two, what's it like working with it?
No, she said, what's the greatest struggle that you dealing with foster children?
The greatest struggle that I've dealt with in dealing with kids who come from the system has been the stereotypes that are portrayed through the system, through the professionals, through the people who are supposed to be serving them. And so oftentimes, if I would go into a situation where there's crisis, and the biggest struggle of all, once I decrease the crisis with the kid, the big work that needs to be done is actually retraining the parent or professional or person who's overseeing the situation, retraining them to view this child in a different light.
Yeah, because these kids have to understand that it's not them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not them. A majority of the times, it's just not you. It's no matter what you think it is, it's not you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just remember that shit.
Yeah, it's like, for example, the other day I was sitting on a plane, and I ended up sitting next to a woman whose parents now adopt and foster, and she was like talking in a negative tone about this one boy that her parents have, and this boy like has this habit of always peeing in bottles and saving it in the bedroom instead of walking across the hallway to go to the bathroom. And she just couldn't make sense of this, and was just so mind-boggled. And this kid is crazy, and this kid is weird. It's just so weird. I don't understand this.
Right.
And all I said to her was, how about instead of looking at the behaviors he has, how about we look at where this might have come from and what he might have experienced? What if his stepdad molested him and beat him any time that he was out in the living room because his stepdad got jealous of him being with his mother, right? What if that was the case? And so he was trained to pee in bottles to avoid being beaten and molested, right?
For sure.
And like just hearing me say that, she was like, "Oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Like I'm gonna go talk to that kid."
One motherfucking
person.
Like one motherfucking person. Nikos, this is the last question. Nico says, where do you find your motivation? What's the best advice you give to someone who is going after their dreams but it's not working out? Where do you find your motivation?
So
from me, there, I answered the question. I'm Travis's entire motivation.
Right?
Not for real.
What I would say is you're going after your dreams, it's not working out, then you're probably doing something wrong. And so instead of just like running in circles and trying a bunch of different things, hone in on finding one person who has accomplished the lifestyle that you want, the goals that you want, the projects that you want, and just reach out to them for mentorship, study their work, study their daily habits, study what education they have, what training they have, watch their videos, like whatever it is, and then become very, very clear on what specific goal you want to accomplish and put a time frame on it.
Yeah,
and then do whatever it takes to learn how to do that. And understand that whatever it is that you want to accomplish, if you think it's going to take 3 years, it's going to take 9.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always triple that.
So don't give up. Just keep learning and growing, and understand that no matter how smart you are, there's always somebody that you can learn from.
And I love that the in-depth research is so crucial, because I feel like today people say they see you on stage, and it's one picture of you on stage, and you say, how do you do that? Well, before you start asking me dumb questions, start researching my life and do the real research of what it took before you ask me, how can I learn to be like you?
Yeah.
Truly try to understand what I've been through and what I've done and the work that I put out there, and study me like a book, like school, because that's what you're supposed to be. That's what I think kids miss these days, is like the actual training in their head to understand that if you just dive into something and actually study it like you are taught to at school, because they neglect that so much, the school doesn't understand me. I'm never going to learn what I want to learn here to be a fucking rapper, be a musician, be a whatever.
Yeah.
But if like you said, pick one person, deep dive into them. Don't just like 2-3 swipes back in the Instagram feed and call it a day. That's not enough. Like, you need to truly. That's great. Good lesson.
The other thing, though, too, is if you're running in circles and you're not making progress, you have to understand that sometimes the universe is kicking you in the ass and saying, maybe you have a talent that's better used elsewhere, and you need to follow what really is in line with who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fuck with that. Cool, man. Well, anything else? Where can they find you at on the internet and all that shit? I'll put that in the show notes, obviously, but
sure.
Quick.
TravisLloyd.net, Instagram, Facebook, everything Travis Lloyd Speaks. Yeah.
Who came up with that again?
Some random dude from Iowa.
Yeah, Travis is dope. Make sure you follow him. Try to check out his book on Amazon. What's the quickest way they can find the book?
OvercomingEmotionalTrauma.com, or sign up for change at 444-999.
444-999.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that shit. And if you made it this far in the podcast, I always tell people to send us a hashtag, like tweet at us and send us a hashtag. So tweet at me and Travis and say, what do you want them to say the hashtag is? You pick anything you want.
How about hashtag
Team Change Lives? It's literally on Travis's shirt right now. It says hashtag Team Change Lives. Yeah, so if you made it this far, send us that hashtag with a thumbs up emoji, and we will respond. And thank you for listening to this episode. That's it. How do you want to end this?
Peace and love.
Shit, we didn't even talk about peace and love. All right, before we get out, this is the quickest thing because this is already pushing 1:45. All right, when we were out and we would go and travel to all these places, I started telling Travis like, yo, because back then it was like, let's take a group photo. When I play music, every show we'd take a photo with the crowd. So I was like, you should take a photo with the crowd. So we'd sit there with all these like young professionals or whatever, and at the very end, we'd tell them to stand up and put the peace sign up with their left hand and the love sign up with their right hand, and turn away, because we had a problem where the kids...
Well, because we wanted to do that with a group of kids who were still in foster care, and because of the state laws, they're not allowed to have their image public.
So we told them, fuck that, turn around, and
you can still be in the photo, just turn around so your face doesn't show.
And so they put their fingers up, peace and love.
And that got picked up by an international social work magazine.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And he's been doing that ever since, even without me. He'll go through and he'll get some picture, he'll get someone to take the photo of him standing there, and it's Travis sitting there looking at the camera, and then all these people with their backs turned. Yeah, that's such a, you know what I mean? And all this.
I even had an audience that was filled with like Fortune 500 CEOs that did that. Yeah.
And it was so unfortunate that those kids wanted to be in the photo, but they couldn't. And that was like the rebellious, like, fuck the system for saying that their faces can't be in the shit. Yeah. Like, peace and love. That was dope. All right. Peace and love. Thank you guys for listening. Say goodbye, Travis.
Goodbye,
Travis. Bye, 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 bye. That's it for episode number 11 with Travis Lloyd. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Make sure to follow Travis on all platforms and pick up his fucking book. I've shared the links to that in the show notes, which you can find at blackwithnocream.com/podcast. Leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you loved about this interview. If you're interested in joining Black With No Cream's private creator group, visit blackwithnocream.com/join. And last but not least, buy some motherfucking ill-ass Black With No Cream merch. Every sale helps me keep this thing alive. Subscribe to Black With No Cream. New episodes every Sunday. See you next week, you bitch!